President Muhammadu Buhari has described as extremely unfortunate the mass killings of innocent people by bandits in Zamfara state. As he conveyed his condolences and that of the government to the people over the recent incidents in some communities in the state, Buhari reiterated his former commitment to tackle the monster of terrorism head-on, assuring that terror will not survive for much longer. The president gave his assurance in a statement yesterday by his spokesman Garba Shehu, following a condolence visit to Zamfara state by a six-man presidential delegation led by the Minister of Defense, Major General Bashir Magashi. Speaking during the visit by the presidential delegation, former Governor Bello Matawale of Zamfara state, there was an urgent need for the review of military's anti-terrorism strategy with the introduction of modern equipment and technology. President of the Senate, Dr. Ahmed Lawan, also expressed concern over the escalating killings of innocent citizens by bandits in many parts of the country. Lawan emphasized that Nigerians were tired of hearing stories of carnages and challenged the military to live up to expectation by urgently addressing the myriad of security challenges facing the country. Sundu, your take on this?
Well, apart from the six-man presidential committee, some APC governors also went and paid their condolences, all of which is in order and just really underscores the absolute tragedy that happened in Zamfara. However, what has been explained is that it's a result of these terrorists, the newly designated terrorists, being cleared out of their enclaves by the Nigerian military, which is great news. But I'm not a military strategist, but I don't quite understand what that means. I wish more information had been shared on that. You're clearing people out of their enclaves and they're beating a retreat, or so we're being told to imagine is what is happening. Then can you not pursue them? Why let them just run amok? Killing everybody in sight, which is what was reported by the people in these villages. The official figure is 58, but people say about 200 were killed. But an official figure from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs is that over 10,000 people have been displaced. Why were they allowed to just run amok? That's the part that I really don't understand. But yes, these are the usual calls. This is nothing new. It's really quite threadbare at this point. And it's just really sad that people are continuing to die. We do hope that it's as they say, that now that they've been designated terrorists and there's such action been taken, that these are like the death throes of these terrorist organizations. That's to be hoped for. But I just can't help but feel that somebody dropped the ball here. Why were they just allowed to just run amok like that?
Dr. Abati?
Okay. I think it's as follows. With the arrival of the Tucano jets from the United States, part of the conditions stated by the American authorities is that under the Foreign Sale of Arms and Ammunition Act, you cannot use those arms and ammunition to either use up the functions of the police or to decimate or attack civilian population. In other words, there were conditions. The other conditions were as outlined in the U.S. Foreign Assistance Act. And all of this was in the context of the Nigerian government saying, well, we have these Tucano jets from the United States, and we are going to go after the bandits. Now, again, around the same time, there was also this revelation that, look, these are no longer bandits. The High Court of Justice Taiwo in the Abuja division, having granted the prayer of the Federal Director of Public Prosecution that bandits should be classified as terrorists, and the president also referring to them as terrorists and the determination of the government to go after them. Now, about 2-3 weeks ago or thereabouts, we were told that the Nigerian Air Force had scaled up its operation, and in the process, two of the kingpins, major kingpins of the banditry, terrorism, operations had been killed, including their associates. So they went also after a third one, Bello Tuji, that's his name. And Bello Tuji was beating a retreat. He was running from one local government to another. I think it's Bukulum and Anka local government areas in the Zamfara local government. And I think we should know this. These bandits, these terrorists, they also read the news. They know that the conditions that have been attached by the American authorities is that, look, there should not be civilian casualties and human rights should be respected. So as they retreated from one local government to the other, Bukuyum and Anka, They started slaughtering people. They were setting houses on fire.
Were there no ground forces?
They were moving and they were killing another, knowing that at the end of the day, the narrative could go against the government of Nigeria. Now, you may say it's reprisal killing. You may say it's, whatever, revenge killing. But the reality is that the official figure is that over 200 people were killed during the weekend. So now the challenge for the Nigerian authorities, military, police, all the security agencies, is to make sure that this kind of situation does not repeat itself. Because you are dealing with a band of nihilists who do not care about human life and who will stop at nothing to make their point. Can you imagine? 200 persons being buried in one day, last Saturday, in just 2 local governments in Nigeria. And the Nigerian authorities, they've not offered an explanation as to why that happened, which is to your point, Tundu, that how could they go on that carnage, that massacre, as some people have described what happened in Zamfara, So the question is, there is a need for a change of strategy, which is the major demand from the governor of Zamfara State, Matawale, who received this 6-man delegation. He was saying that perhaps this so-called security architecture will need to be changed again, because you are dealing with people who are determined also to stop at nothing. So the next time you go again after Bello Tuji and his men, or you go after another, gangster involved in this operation, are they going to just go from village to village and say, as you chase us, we will keep killing people? So the security of lives and property is important, and the government should just have to think out of the box to see that as government intensifies its efforts in ensuring the security of the people, it also does not place itself in a situation whereby criminals will be able to humiliate it. The other point that was made that I think we should take note of is a point made by Ahmad Lawan, the Senate president, who made it clear that, look, the 9th National Assembly, under his watch as chairman, has appropriated or made available over ₦1 trillion to the Nigerian authorities, to the security agencies, to prosecute the war against terrorism. And he is also asking for better performance. Condolence visits may be a demonstration of decency, but I don't think they will serve the purpose alone of people who feel that, they feel insecure inside Nigeria, particularly when you look at the long-term implications, not just for the economy, not just for human rights, but also in the context of the fact that Nigeria is going into a transition mode. 2022, 2023, the country is in a transition phase. And there are people who have been trying to provide a linkage between the security crisis and the killings, the elections, and saying that, look, if the current situation continues, then perhaps in some parts of the country, we may not be able to have elections. So the government has a serious work ahead of it, beyond condolence visits and beyond the press statements, condoling with the people. I used to be accused of having a formula for issuing condolence messages, but we have all seen that this is the dilemma, the challenge that the entire country faces.
I think the next president of Nigeria, whoever it will be, has his job cut out for him. Because we've been fighting a war since 2009, and we need to end it. The stats are not good. The indicators of displaced people are not good in the country. I remember back in the days how we used to, most Nigerians, I would say, wondered what was happening in Liberia when you have a lot of Liberians coming here as entirely displaced people in various camps around the country. It is fast getting to that point now in most parts of the North. We need to have a multi-pronged approach to solving this problem. Maybe we need to rethink security architecture or strategy. I'm not a military strategist. But at the same time also, maybe we need to rethink socioeconomic development of various regions in the country. Whatever policies that are going to be put in place have to be done. Because anytime you have a crisis, there's always a holistic solution. And I always tout the solution provided by Professor Hernando de Soto as regards the conflict in Peru with the Shining Path rebels. A lot of killings were going on, and he said, yes, you can shoot your way out of this, but how about things like property rights and deepening small business and access to credits in these areas? And it worked. I'm not directly saying what will work in Peru might work in Nigeria, but what I'm saying is, isn't it the time for us to have our own homegrown solution that is multi-pronged to solving this problem? This war has gone on for way too long. 2009, this is 2023. Generations coming around are having this. And it is painful for our country. So the earlier we look for it, the better it is. But I must say, the next president of Nigeria will have to face a lot of problems. One will be insecurity. And his work is cut out for him. So we should think closely about the process of election.
Well, but the Nigerian government talks about kinetic and non-kinetic approaches. That's what you've just described. The question to ask, so it's not as if they are not aware of, dimensions to the problem. The question is, why is it that both the kinetic and the non-kinetic approaches have not worked? With Ahmad Lawan, the senior president, saying we have provided over 1 trillion naira. And I hope that nobody will come tomorrow and say 1 trillion naira is not enough. Within the few months that have been spent by the National Assembly.
And we all watched the interview when somebody said, even when we spend 2 trillion on the military, it's so small.
Well, whatever. But, they know that it's a multi-pronged approach. Why is it not working?
All right, thank you so much. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll have Rosa Sodiri, Michael Wilson, Adeso Omoro, and Aaron Akejola to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rota Sidiri is here to give us an African business update. Morning, Rota.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. So lots to discuss. First off, the SMEDEN, which supports Small Medium Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria, released a report, a 2020 report, showing that 1.8 million NMSMEs, it's nano, small, medium enterprises, were impacted. They were shut down by the COVID pandemic. It's a 2020 report on SMEs that folks can read about in today's This Day newspaper. It was in collaboration with the Bureau of Statistics. And so they looked at, pretty much the impact. I think contribution to GDP dropped by about 3.5%. The 1.8 million figure, and that is the number of businesses that shut down, I think that took the figure to about 35.2 million or so from 41.1 in 2017. So this, again, is just a report that shows, and, I have to really loved your interview yesterday with the governor of Ebonyi and his presidential admissions. Your questions were around measuring impact, and I guess, this is what we need to concentrate on when we look at reports like this. How do you measure the impact of the pandemic and so on and so forth? Politicians who want to get into office, we need to see measurable impact in either side on impact on businesses. So this is a very, very key report. And Dr. Diko Umar Rada, who is the Director General, CEO of SMEDEN, said that we need more reports like this. There needs to be a better environment for SMEs in Nigeria. And again, this just shows the impact of COVID on businesses. Speaking of impact on businesses, the Twitter ban has been lifted, and Garba Shehu put out a tweet saying that the sacrifice that youth, I think we have the tweet. It says the sacrifice that the youth of Nigeria and everyone else, the sacrifice put together, it's in the middle of the screen there. Yeah, so it says, I join the leaders of government in appreciating all Nigerians, especially the vibrant Nigerian youth who have borne with the long wait to resolve this impasse. And as the government statement clearly says, the gains are immeasurable. So again, how do you measure those gains that were made from this ban? SERAP, Socio-Economic Accountability Project, has said that President Buhari should pay reparations to businesses that lost out on customers that they couldn't reach following this ban. There's their tweets. This is so refreshing to be able to share tweets again. But yeah, so they said the ban is a travesty. It should never have happened, and they should pay reparations. If you're an artisan and you couldn't reach out to business and you couldn't sell to businesses, well, that's what they're saying. So how do we measure that? So anyway, after about 222 days, Twitter is back. Shelter Afrique is a Pan-African, we're moving on to real estate now and housing. Shelter Afrique is a Pan-African housing financier that has shareholders across Africa. So they are looking to receive, I think there's a 28.2 or 28.3 million dollar payment from Nigeria. It is in capital arrears. Basically, Nigeria is a shareholder. If Nigeria makes this $28 million payment to Shelter Afrique, again, whose shareholders are 44 African nations, I believe Nigerian shareholdings in the company goes to 13.2%, behind Kenya, that's at 17.78%, and the AFDB, that's at 12.8%. So they are looking at, I think they want to raise a $500 million bond or so in order to spread affordable housing across the continent. So it helps that, I think the parent is in Kenya, and then they're looking at getting the supports to get affordable housing across the continent. And then the AFDB, they've granted $14 million, I believe, to South Sudan to help with food security, insecurity, and a number of issues. South Sudan needs as much help as they can get, so the AFDB is providing their supports to them. And then Huawei and MTN Zambia, they've collaborated to roll out 5G in Zambia. That's our update.
Thank you, Rotas. I mean, that nano, micro, what's the difference in practical terms, in terms of policy? Because I know what the
SMEs are already small enough.
Yes.
Nano is even smaller.
So just one or two people, yeah. But is there like a policy difference or no?
Not really. So what Dr. Rada was talking about, Director General of SMEDEN, was that the same enabling business environment that they've been trying to enable for SMEs overlaps and should cover nano SMEs as well. So it's the same. They're trying to get all of them on board as far as being able to conduct business freely.
Right. And regarding Twitter, obviously this is great news. I do think that suspension, ban, whatever you want to call it, should never have happened. I agree with Serap there. But the federal government does make a point. You look at India's model. India came down so hard on Twitter because Twitter, you're operating in India, making all that money, but you're saying you're governed by the laws of the US. Obviously, that's not going to work. So now they've had to be brought to the table. And what have they promised? They're going to fulfill their tax obligations in Nigeria. They're going to establish an office here. So much for going to Ghana. Well, the Nigerian government has forced them to come here in the first quarter of this year.
We'll see.
They're going to have a representative to be able to liaise with the government and so on and so forth, and just really abide by Nigerian laws and not promote divisive speech and what have you. So they've been smacked on the wrist quite soundly. Oh dear.
Well, we don't seem to have time. I think we're a bit under pressure. But a number of issues. The small and medium-scale enterprises dominate, business, investment, economic activities, not just in Nigeria, where it's almost 80%, but also the whole of Africa. And that's why they've been identified as central to the African Continental Free Trade, agreement plans. The question is there something that the Nigerian government can do? In the context of COVID, in the context of a post-COVID reality or post-pandemic recovery to assist, those agencies or those businesses. And that's why we have SMEDEN in the first place. Shelter Afrique. Yes, Shelter Afrique is a developmental financial institution. The only major Pan-African real estate investment, institution that you have in Africa. 46 African governments have invested in it, including Nigeria. They have a new managing director that has been there since 2018. And one of the things that the managing director in charge rather, is not new. He's been there for 3 years now. Wants to do is to go into a bond issuance program in 2022. And Nigeria is one of those targeted countries. How Shelter Afrique can expand its real estate investments in Nigeria. I recall that many years back, Shelter Afrique did something with the Akwa Ibom state government. They had this low-cost housing program in Akwa Ibom. Those buildings are still there.
Yes,
So
Mr.
they want to come in again, issue bond, raise capital, and see, opportunities that are available, not just in Nigeria, but also in some of the 46 partner countries that we have in Africa. As for Twitter, well, maybe there will be more time. Maybe there will be more time to look at the details, because there are details contained in the statement issued by the federal government of Nigeria that we may need to interrogate further, either in terms of those conditions that Twitter acceded to, or what Garuba Shehu calls the gains of the ban. He says shared gains of the sacrifice. Who made that sacrifice? Who made the sacrifice on my behalf? Who made the sacrifice on your behalf? But I guess there will be time.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Reuters.
much. Thank you.
Moving on to more business updates, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Let's have a look at Asia Pacific stocks first of all, and unsurprisingly trying to digest those red hot inflation figures from the United States yesterday. More of that in a moment. Japan led the losses in the region. The Nikkei down about 1%. I've got it here. Major retailers down as well. Let's move to China, and whilst the composite there didn't do too badly, let's go to one of its developers. This is Sunac. Shares falling 15% after a share sale plan. It said it was going to sell 452 million shares to its controlling shareholder. It's trying to resurrect itself from where it's gone, like a lot of these property companies within the real estate sector in China. China's zero COVID policy, according to some experts, will hit consumer spending before it, because it means that people simply just won't go out. It may protect some kind of retail activity, but the bottom line is, even if the economy itself is protected, even if exports continue, if you don't have consumer spending, then you don't have much of an economy. Onto chip makers, and it's been observed that they'll be the big winners in the new metaverse, the next big thing. We talked about this on the program earlier this week, and basically the metaverse is a virtual world where you can do lots of things, including go to virtual sports events and all the rest of it, which actually is a peculiar thing to be actually doing. Facebook announced it was changing its name to Meta. Do you remember that in October? And it's the next big thing in big tech's concerned. Anyway, look out for the people who are actually make the machinery behind it. Kim Kardashian, she doesn't often feature in our business comment, but she, along with some other celebrities, being sued by investors because of this so-called pump and dump for a cryptocurrency called Ethereum Max. Basically, coming up with the advantages of it and then walking away fairly quickly, and it's called pump and dump. She's one of three celebrities who apparently are being accused of doing this and being sued by shareholders. As far as the US is concerned, here's the big recap then. So 7% inflation, about 5% core inflation. It didn't actually rattle the markets that much because they'd been expecting a fairly hot result. Fed officials, as we know, are looking at this very, very carefully indeed. They're also looking at employment. The bet's now 7% chance, it's saying, for the first quarterly percentage point increase in May now, but maybe people are looking at 4 increases over 2022. Futures fairly flat. As I say, the stock market didn't really, whichever way you look at it, worry too much about those. If I were in America, I'd be worried about it because I could see it eroding the value of my savings. I would be worried about that, but the markets are taking it on board. Here, the political crisis surrounding the Prime Minister continues. Is this the last party? Is the party finally over for Boris Johnson? Well, we'll see about that. Maybe he's escaped. Lots of things happen in life, don't they? Some people do things and then apologise afterwards. Some people ask everybody's opinion, do nothing, and nothing happens at all. Johnson is clearly one of these people who thinks that some kind of apology is going to save him. Well, he's getting a lot of flack from inside the party, and I'm not talking about the opposition, I'm talking about within the Conservative Party. So it's still got a long way to run, that story. All right, India trade talks. The new trade Trade Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan. She's meeting Indian officials today. They want to sort of get something on the table to start discussing this. Maybe happen next month. They're aiming for 2023. Everything is up for grabs, apparently, according to both sides. What India wants is more access for Indian students and also skilled workers to come to the UK. They both want to get it done for 2023 because both are facing elections coming up, not so much in 2023, but they feel as though if they put a 2023 date on it, then it'll cause things to happen. And just very briefly, the House of Lords Committee has been looking at Britcoin, the sort of central bank issue Bitcoin thing that a lot of people are discussing. Central banks all around the world are thinking to do their own. The Bank of England's and the House of Lords Committee is very worried about the fact that it might worry security chiefs in this country, and it might make the UK vulnerable to hostile governments. As far as oil's concerned, I won't dwell on the daily price because we've had a sort of look forward from the Energy Information Administration. It's a US-based forecasting agency, and it's looking at Brent crude, and it averaged $79 a barrel, as you know, in 2021. Maybe during 2022, an average of 75. That's what they're talking about, and 68 in 2023. Reason for that's quite simple: demand actually falling off as this transition from fossil fuels to green-friendly and climate-friendly and planet-friendly energy actually continues. That is the global view this morning.
All right, Marco, real quickly, one of the biggest inflation rates in a while in America, 7%, top 7%, that's since about 1982. So what is happening? Is it that the economy is overburning in America? Or overheating should be the word? Yes, because that rate is staggering. And you know, in 1982, it was just a fallout of the madness we had in inflation rates in the 70s. That was why that happened in 1982. So what is really happening there? And secondly, let's talk about energy prices. There's a story out there saying that an average British family might be paying well over £2,500 now yearly for energy prices, for energy costs.
Yes, I'm here. Your question was? What about energy prices? Okay, I've been saying this for a number of days now. It got to 2,000, maybe a new figure of 2,500. Maybe what people are saying here, there's a number of ways in which the government is actually looking at this. Reducing VAT, in other words, cutting it completely on energy prices. Maybe a one-off windfall charge as far as oil and gas companies are concerned. Gas in particular has actually benefited hugely from rising prices, as have the oil companies. The oil companies are countering this by saying, if you tax us with a big one-off, then there won't be investments in looking, and so that argument will continue like that. There will be some kind of help for families. It may be that there may be targeted help for those who can afford it. Cutting VAT is too broad a based thing. That's the criticism of it. So it could be targeted in the same way that benefits are. But I think that because there's so much political pressure now, and as I said, the Prime Minister is looking for ways to appease the voters after this mess that he's got himself in, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see some kind of help coming right now. As far as the United States is concerned, well, yes, they're red hot, but they were expected. I personally, Main Street me would be worried. Wall Street's not worried at all because it sees a load of money coming in, and this is what was expected. So there's a bigger gap between Main Street me and Wall Street them, as it were. I would be very worried about this. But the bets are rising on 0.25% increases, which would be quite big actually for the United States. Now the bets sort of turning towards 4 of those. What's happening is that I don't think the economy is overheating. I think it's building up again. I think if you add in all the supply side problems and so on, the problems of getting hold of things, it's pretty likely that prices will rise, and they will continue to do so. I think longer term, the Fed will probably wait now a month or two before it makes a decision. Most of the bets now in May.
Well, quickly, the proposed trade deal with India. Negotiations are supposed to start today. The business community in the UK is excited. The Trade Secretary, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, is also excited. This has even been described as a golden opportunity. And you said there will be plans to wrap this up very quickly. How much of a golden opportunity is it, beyond the fact that India has a large population and the fact that a deal with China is impossible and a free trade deal with the United States has not happened? Now, India has been trying to have a free trade deal also with the EU and also with Australia. That has taken a decade. And now you have Trevelyan saying, oh, we'll do this very quickly. What is the guarantee that that will happen quickly? And then, of course, the steel, another trade issue. Catherine Tai is saying that the removal or reduction of tariffs that the UK is asking for will happen at the right time. When is the right time? And I ask that question because you recall that the UK Trade Secretary, after the last meeting that was held in December on this particular issue, threatened that the UK may consider retaliatory measures. Looks like the UK is not talking about retaliatory measures again, and the promise by Trevelyan that the issue will be resolved in January is not going to happen in the light of what the US Trade Representative is saying. And the UK seems to be at a disadvantage, considering the fact that the EU countries enjoy an advantage in this regard.
Okay, so a lot of subjects there. Let's get to the main one, which is India, which would be the biggest post-Brexit deal. They're not hurrying it. They're saying that anything's on the table, so there are no specifics. But we do know what India wants, and I don't think the government here is going to have any problem about allowing Indian students into the country, or indeed Indian skilled workers. I think there's no problem about that, as far as I can tell from what's happening at the moment. As far as steel's concerned, it's always been a contentious issue, and I think we do need, or rather the UK needs to get this deal done, because as you quite rightly say, there's little prospect of much movement as far as the United States is concerned about a trade deal there. It will happen. These are all shifting big plates. As soon as one thing happens, people readjust their own positions and look at things more favorably or not. I think that everybody realizes in the one corner you have China, and nobody's really sure about that, and then you've got all these other developing deals between big countries like India, like the EU, the bloc of the EU, like the United States and like the UK. It's like a long war. It never really begins, and it never really ends. It's a continuing discussion. But I think that if the new trade secretary, or if she's still there in this job, when it happens in 2023, if she can pull this off, it will be a massive deal, and it certainly will benefit both India and the UK. And India, as you quite rightly observe, is being seen as the second largest current economy in the world as we move into the 2040s, 2050s. So no bad thing if that can actually happen.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate you for your time. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesua Queen Amorwa is here with us. Adesua, great to have you.
Thank you very much, Rifai, and for the new name, Queen.
Yes.
Good morning to Nuabiola. Good morning,
Morning.
Dr. Bati. Good to be here.
Morning.
Morning. Well, very quickly, the World Health Organization has given a weekly breakdown of the pandemic movement, and it says 15 million people contracted COVID-19 in the last 7 days. You have the figures as provided by the Johns Hopkins University, but here's the breakdown by the WHO for the weekly epidemiological report, and that's higher than any time during this pandemic. Remember last week I brought you the highest figure of 9.5 million people. This time around it was 15 million people in the course of 7 days, and that was a 50% rise in cases. However, the WHO says the deaths remain stable. In the last 7 days we saw 43,000 deaths from across the world. In case you're wondering where the surge came from, well, every world region reported a rise except Africa. And officials in Africa say they saw an 11% drop in cases. However, reasons were not given. The number of new cases in Europe rose by 31%, while there was a 10% drop in deaths. That's good news from Europe. It's been the epicenter again in the latest wave. While the biggest jump, however, in COVID-19 infections was noted in Southeast Asia, where cases increased by more than 400%, with the largest numbers coming in from India, Thailand, and Bangladesh. while the numbers of deaths in that region also fell by 6%. So this is recurring. We're beginning to see a rise in infections due to Omicron. However, we're seeing a decrease in deaths. While the WHO is also reiterating a very bleak forecast it gave yesterday that the Omicron variant of COVID-19 is dangerous, especially for those who are not vaccinated against this virus. And data does prove that. It says the overwhelming majority of people admitted to hospitals across the world are those who are not yet vaccinated. Well, here in Nigeria, 432 new cases and unfortunately 6 deaths were recorded in the last 24 hours. The new infections were reported from 14 states as well as the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. A look at the latest vaccination update posted about 18 hours ago by the NPHCDA, the authority in charge. A little over 12 million Nigerians have now received at least 1 dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, while just my emphasis here is just 4.8 million others showing up to be fully vaccinated with 2 doses. We cannot stress enough the importance of having a complete course of a COVID-19 vaccine. Except you are taking a Johnson & Johnson, which is a single dose, every other vaccine available requires at least 2 doses, and I say at least 2 doses because Nigeria has also rolled out booster shots. That is the Pfizer vaccine, by the way. Now, the dropout rates for the second doses are very high at the moment, and what this means is that we have a larger population that is less protected and also would have vaccines that would be destroyed and wasted because they do have shelf lives if they do not go into the arms of people. Well, to the UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson yesterday set out to defend himself, and he apologized for attending a party in his London residence during the height of the lockdown in 2020 when his government was confining people to their homes. Well, from one man facing uncertainty because his resignation calls have now become louder even within his own party, like Michael Wilson just said. But from that man who's facing one uncertainty to another man due to their COVID lockdown behavior is Djokovic. Although Novak Djokovic now knows who his first Australian Open opponent will be, I'm sure Aaron Akerejola will tell you more during the sports update. Well, that's if he's allowed to stay in the country, and that's a big if because we are waiting the decision of the immigration minister this afternoon in Australia. However, back in Spain, the government is also investigating a tennis player, checking if he entered the country illegally in late December. And that's because since September, citizens from Serbia who are arriving in Spanish territory needed to present a vaccination certificate or request a medical exemption. The Spanish government says Djokovic didn't do any of those two. And to Africa now, although there had been a decrease, in cases as a continent, we do have countries that are reporting increase in cases, and one of such is Tunisia. Now, the government in Tunisia has now announced that because of this rise in cases, it will reimpose a nighttime curfew and a ban on all gatherings for 2 weeks starting today. However, critics decried the timing because it comes just 2 days. Actually, it comes a day before a planned anti-government protest in the country. And finally, to a groundbreaking decision, a court in Spain has ordered a regional government to compensate doctors to, listen to this, 49,000 euros or $56,000 each for having to work without personal protection equipment
PPEs.
in the early days of the pandemic.
Yes. That's a very good one on this one. I'm very happy about that report because a lot of governments in the world dropped the ball as regards purchase of PPE. We even know what happened in economies like Britain, where because of racketeering, because Boris Johnson wanted to give his friends PPE deals from Turkey, he was so hell-bent on that rather than getting supplies for the doctors that needed them. So if this report is coming out, they must pay compensation because they risked their lives by working that way. Secondly, to Djokovic, I think Djokovic has come out to hurt himself with that report or that statement he issued. He just indicted himself. I don't know who advised that man. With the love and passion I have for Djokovic, but I'm surprised. You came out to say that you took at first an antigen test. Adesua, what's the protocol? For anything that prompts you to take an antigen test, the moment you take it, you need to isolate. even if you took it twice, you need to isolate because there are a lot of false negatives until you get a confirmatory PCR test. So he claimed because two antigen tests were negative, he was moving around. And you know where he further shot himself in the foot is the fact that he said that after getting a report, he still went ahead to do an interview with a L'Equipe journalist, and he social distance and he wore face mask and he knew he had COVID. No, now, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong, Djokovic.
Anyway, Djokovic has survived the draw. It looks like he's going to play. But the main issue, as you have pointed out, is what the Minister of Immigration says later today when he looks at a number of issues, errors and discrepancies, character issues related to Djokovic, what was filled in the form when he arrived in the country. But whatever happens, this is going to affect Djokovic's career and his brand, as I've said previously on this program. But we'll see what happens. Now the International Tennis Writers Association is complaining about putting their colleagues at risk when he granted that interview to L'Equipe journalists, knowing clearly that he had tested positive. Spain is questioning his presence also in Belgrade. Now the issue about the Spanish doctors' suit. This is the Doctors' Union of Valencia. And the court has ruled and provided compensation to the tune of about 49,000 euros. 5,000 for doctors who tested positive because they didn't have a PPE but did not fall sick. 15,000 euros for doctors who fell ill but did not require hospitalization. Another 35,000 euros for another category, and 49,000 euros for doctors who were hospitalized. The real concern is that apart from the Doctors' Union of Valencia, that other doctors' unions in other parts of Spain may go to court and they may also win. However, the regional chief has apologized, but the apology is not enough. It looks like the region, Valencia, is going to go on an appeal. But the issue, of course, is that, look, health workers, frontline workers, deserve to be protected, whether it is Omicron or Delta or whatever variant. So there are lessons to be taken from that Doctors' Union victory in Spain.
All right, thank you so much, Adesua.